Hello and welcome to the Ask Aviator episode number 38, the Ask Aviator podcast pre-show, video show, whatever you want to call it. If you're watching live right now, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Eric Farewell, and if you don't know who I am, you're probably in the wrong place. If you do know who I am, I'm very sorry. Today, this show is brought to you by One Wheel Accessories, Kate's Crazy Hair, and my friend Jamie, who brought us this beautiful Belle Meade straight sour mash bourbon. His wife, Jane Ellen's behind the screen right now, hanging out with us. We got a whole lot of great people in the chat. We've got Eric Sheridan, Brian Waller, Daniel Jones, and Craig Taylor. Brian Waller, actually, it was funny. I had a dream about you last night, and I mean that as creepy as it may seem. Actually, I had a dream that. So those of you guys who don't know the whole story, we like to. We say it's our Aviator family, and it really is, because like this year at Thanksgiving, we hosted, I think it was like 60, 70 people for Thanksgiving, and Brian made 2 of the 3 turkeys. And so I was thinking to myself, I had this nightmare that you, Brian, wouldn't be here for Thanksgiving, and I was going to have to handle all the turkeys. So this is a public shout out that you'd better freaking be here for Thanksgiving. But Derek Trout, Leanne Trout, Peter Ciesla, Nick Griffith. Great to see everybody in the chat. My wife says I have a nice haircut. Thanks, baby. You noticed. So, lots of good folks. Jim Sierra 120, I see in there. I sent you an email this afternoon. Bob Litherak, Charlie Walsh. Guys, awesome to have everybody here. We have an action-packed show that should last at least 7 minutes tonight. So I'm excited for it. We do actually have some cool stuff to talk about. We have one of our current students who's a local. He's from Polk County, just like me, and he is going to kind of share some of his flying experience. We call him Mr. T. He's a very special man. And then we have Dave. And now Dave is an interesting character, not just the way he looks. Sorry, Dave. You kind of remind me of the guy in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Like in a really positive way, in a very positive way. It's probably the glasses shaping. You can see it? All right, so all this said, he spent 36 years in the National Weather Service. So he came through our weather class, and we taught him everything he knows. And then he spent the next 9 days teaching us everything that we could ever possibly want to know. So I'm excited because we're going to talk about weather, and I want to get your questions in the chat about weather, things that you've wondered about how forecasting works, how modeling works, what the concepts of being able to follow isobars and barometric pressure, being able to understand and look further out than your standard weather app does. Because with paramotoring, we're able to have this unique opportunity to look at micro weather. Whereas, like as a general aviation pilot, I look at macro weather. I look at whether, if I'm flying from here to Nashville, where are the icing conditions? When will those icing conditions push through? I'm trying to consider ceilings and everything else. Paramotoring, I'm really most concerned about what's within 5 miles of me. And then I have to look at a slightly larger scale, but I never go fully macro. And so learning what Dave has to say about all this stuff, I think, will be really, really interesting. And I'd love to get you guys' questions. So, Jim Sierra 120, what indications might someone in the air see/feel that should alert them to potential problematic weather? I have a very unique answer for this. It's not going to be Dave's answer. We'll have him on later. But the actual answer is that when this left knee starts locking up from where I broke it, that's when I know I should land. It's the truth, actually. Daniel Jones, when is the UK weather going to be better? Never. You should move here. But all right. So before we jump in any further, people in the pre-show asked that I share what we have here. So these are the matte ones. We've got one-wheel fenders coming out our ears now. We became dealers for Craft and Ride and Float Life. So if anybody wants anything, I'm bringing a whole bunch of stuff to the Palm Bay Fly-In, the Palm Bay Fun Fair, whatever it is. I'm excited. Dan Maffitt's here. Dan, you should be back in this room. Tell me how much Virginia sucks. Dan was our filmmaker until Friday, and he's up in Virginia right now, and we miss you, Dan. Kate's done an amazing job, though. Kate and Ross and everybody set this all up, and they're doing a great job. So is the entire crew here. Jane Ellen's helping out. Tom Kubat, I owe you a phone call. I'll see you in a couple weeks. So, yeah, we have all the different accessories for your one wheel, and we have a whole bunch of XRs that just came in. So if you are a one-wheel needy person, like you need one, we got you. All right, first guest. Charles, you want to come over? Don't trip.
Nope.
I have to be careful of the wire because apparently there's not enough slack.
Apparently you're on the wire.
I am on the wire.
I got you.
All right, so what's your name? How old are you? Where are you from?
Charles Lloyd. I'm 49, and I live approximately about 10.5 miles away from here.
10.5 miles.
Yes.
So in our last 3 classes, back to back, we've had people who've come from the West Coast, and they say that, hey, we flew over your entire competition to get here. You didn't have to go very far.
No. My only competition was I had to wait months.
How long did you wait?
Well, I signed up in November.
That's not that
to
bad.
make the February month, but I was itching to get in here. All I could see were paramotors flying over my house, and I'm thinking, how awesome is that? I'm doing yard work. These guys are up flying.
Yeah.
Who is the sucker in this one?
So the fun thing for me is I always like to ask these questions. How'd you find paramotor? Was it us flying over your house?
Yes, and YouTube, infamous YouTube.
Did you watch Jacqueline's boyfriend fly to McDonald's?
Yes, I sure did.
What's his name again?
Mr. Gott.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can never remember.
Mr. Tucker.
I know he's related somehow to Jacqueline. That's all.
Yes. But, yeah, the whole experience so far has been amazing.
How many flights you up to?
20.
20 flights. You
And
started
we
training
still
last
got
Saturday.
3 more days left.
That's not a bad trip.
No, I loved every flight.
Now, we promise something.
What's that?
Day 1,
Mm-hmm.
we say, hey, if you'll let it, this will change your life. These people that are surrounding you will become part of your family.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? Has it been part of your reality?
Yes, and it's been one of those things that, like my first ever flight, Fletch tells me, we may do this if everything looks good.
Mm-hmm.
We may do this. But whenever I'm listening to Fletch, and now he's just ingrained in my head, all these guys are, from
He's
being
an internal monologue.
Yeah, being in the helmet. But I'm listening to Fletch, and whenever he tells me full power, I got all this stuff going on in my head, but the one thing that really hit me that I remember is we're really doing this.
Yeah.
And whenever I take off, the beautiful Florida sunset, Fletch tells me, he goes, yeah, buddy, you're in the sunset.
Heck yeah.
And that meant the world to me. It was awesome.
It's something, I never heard that term until my dad brought it up. My dad's a lover of the outdoors, and he'd always loved to go watch the sunrise.
Oh, yeah.
And then after he started flying, he landed one day, he said, Eric, I'm in the sunrise. And I was just like, oh. It's true. I mean, that's reality, is we get to be a part of something greater than ourselves.
Well, it's also amazing whenever you can get up and you've got a good altitude, you let off the throttle. Everything, you hear the little ping of that 2-stroke motor, which is a good thing on your back.
Yeah.
But you hear that little small ping, but yeah, you just feel at peace, and at ease. You're like, I'm up here.
It's really fun once you get your own motor and you start flying more, because I know you're going to be flying with us all the time. You're going to be a figure with us.
Oh,
here. Yeah. Getting up to 2,000 feet, shut the motor off. You get down to 100 feet and just restart. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
So it just becomes, and then you start thermaling.
Yeah.
And you shut down for 4 hours and you keep flying. It's like, oh my gosh.
See, now you're just, it's like butter on a bread, man. You're enticing me more and more.
It's like butter on a bread.
Yeah.
So
hurry up, Kate. Get my wing.
Get your wing. So you have quite the history. I mean, the first day we met, we started going through your phone, and you're showing off pictures of your hot rods.
Oh yeah.
You're a fabricator.
Yes.
And are you gonna help us fabricate some stuff around here?
Most definitely.
So
Yep.
I literally in the attic of the hangar, I'm like, our electric paramotor project's up there, and I was like, I need this, and this. He's like, I could do that. I was like, well, okay.
We got it. We can make it happen. Yeah. One way or another, we'll make it happen.
I'm excited. That's the thing to me, is like, whenever we find a student who's super talented, who and so many of our students are, and like I say, we become kind of family. I begged you today to help me restore the bike that my brother and I restored before he passed, so that I can ride it again, because you have the skill. I can weld, but it's been 15 years since I've held a welder. So I could weld. I probably can't anymore.
So what we call guerrilla welding. Yeah, it may hold, but it sure doesn't look good.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I remember my first time. So I went to aircraft welding classes in high school, and so I started off with an oxyacetylene bottle, and I'm running chromoly tubing,
Yeah.
and then from chromoly with oxyacetylene up to steel plates. Well, I guess it was steel plates to chromoly, and then we went to stick,
Yeah.
and then we did the logical jump, which was to avoid MIG because it's not artistry, and go straight to TIG in aluminum.
Okay, then.
And I just want to point out that if you want to see the most glorious globs and blobs of aluminum, I am your guy. I can absolutely make modern art.
Yeah. Well, whenever I first started tigging, I sat down with my rig. I hit the pedal. Next thing I know, my electrode's burnt. Sharpened it, put it back in, hit it again. Come to find out, had my electrodes backwards.
Oh no.
So yeah, it took me a minute to figure that one out. I'm like, oh.
All right, so a couple flying questions, and then we'll let you go wherever you're going. I know you got to go do things. You can't leave though. We had call sign night tonight. You can't leave. Call sign night's important here, guys. This is when you see how Mikey Brown dresses, you'll understand. This is imperative. So we say it's a family.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the weird cousin in your class? Instructors count.
That would have to be, and I hope he's watching. That would probably be Jim.
I figured you were going to say yourself.
No, Jim. He's a character, man. He was good to sit beside. Just talk with. He's interesting.
I think my 5-year-old daughter thinks that he's her second dad. She
Yeah,
loves him.
yeah. She's all over him.
She loves it. All right. So favorite flight so far? First.
That was magical.
Did you feel in control?
I actually did. Whenever I went up, I'd heard the guys talking about the wings, but whenever I got up in the air and I'm making my turns, listening to Fletch's calm English voice telling me what to do.
He's calm until he asks you to put the radios away at night, and then he's not calm anymore.
Either that or he's not had his coffee.
Well, the man has 15 pots a day.
Yeah.
We're close to going insolvent because of his coffee intake.
But yeah, it was one of those things that I felt comfortable. I felt at ease, and it was one of those moments that I'd never experienced before, and I won't ever experience that first one again.
Right.
But each and every one is magical. To be able to do this kind of stuff here is amazing.
And that's, to me, that's the big beauty of what we do and how we do it, is we build those steps so that you can feel confident getting in the air the first time. And it's not me. It's Chris, AJ, Drew, all the guys who've helped develop the system. Like, it's so much better than it used to be, brother.
Oh yeah,
It's
I've heard the horror stories.
Yeah, and not just Navy. Our early students, I always tell them, I'm sorry guys, we're doing better now. Because when you've only taught 20, 30 fixed wing pilots, and you go and you start teaching paramotor, and I can fly, but you don't know how to teach as well until you have trained a lot of people. And then as you bring in more experienced pilots, more experienced instructors, you start to systemize everything. I think what they're doing now is it's mind blowing. I feel almost like out of body experience, looking at it, going, wow, I started that. I didn't complete it by any means, but because they're the ones who are completing it. But it's really cool to see the people who've come together.
But these guys, each and every single one, they have their forte, and like we were told at the beginning of the class, it's nice to hit each and every teacher because you may learn something different from each and every teacher.
Well, that's why I have a guy right now. He might be watching us live. I'm not sure. Excuse me. He is desperate to get trained within this short window of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I offered him. I was like, hey, we're trying to accommodate him however we could. I had a little bit of space in March. Couldn't make that. Had a little bit of space in Denellen in March. Couldn't make that. I'm like, the reality is, if you go to a single instructor, and I don't want to say it from my perspective, so I'll ask it as a question. If you went to one instructor for training, do you think you get the same experience or as good of an experience as
No.
having? You had 6 instructors with 8 students, and I guess maybe you had a little more. Maybe you had 7. With Chris County, you have 7 instructors, 8 students. Is it like, to me, there's a lot of value in being able to have different perspectives. Like, that's why we do it that way.
Exactly. And not only that, the safety aspect of it all. I have been on the radio, and each and every one of us has our own set of comm that we listen to our one instructor on. But I have heard other instructors chirp in on those lines telling us, hey, look out for this. Hey, look out for that. Every one of the guys, their heads are on swivels, and they are making sure that you are safe in the air.
That's the whole point. I mean, I think we're the only flight school in the country that has a field boss. Aside from like fixed wing flight schools where they have an air traffic controller. Yeah. We have a field boss watching for everything that's happening, because on a good night at Aviator, you might see 30, 40 pilots in the air. That's not uncommon. There's a lot going on.
A lot going on.
So we got to find ways to keep it safe. So before I let you go, chat. There's 95 of you watching right now, unless it's broken again, and we're at like 200. Any questions for Charles? As a guy who's come through class, he started class 9 days ago. Share your questions. If you have questions coming up, I know Jim CR120 is scheduled for a class in November or December. We've got lots of guys in here. So Derek Trout says, Aviator made it so easy for me. 21.3 hours on my motor since I've been home. Thank you, Eric. Derek, you have more hours on your motor since you've been home than I've had on my motor since I got it. That's just kind of sad. I think I got my motor in October. I fly the student motors a lot. That's going to be my excuse.
Yeah, right.
Jonathan Doe, I want to hear a discussion of the weather that resulted in the paramotor pilot who got slapped out of the sky, interviewed by Tom Kubat. That would be a great one. I have a secret desire to get Dave to be on camera and do like a long video about weather. I'd love to have like a repeat of the weather class and going through all the apps. So we may do that. Paul Smith asked you, Charles, most inspirational instructor. And by the way, before you answer, your wife's in here and says that she thinks this is your last hobby. I feel like that's wishful thinking, personally.
Well, she knows me, and I know her, and my billfold will only go so far. She says, you're not continuing another hobby unless you get rid of this one. You've got too many. But the most inspirational, and I don't know if it's just because of how we got along in the beginning, but it has to be Fletch, man. Fletcher is just, he's the man. Not to say I don't like any of the other guys, man. Don't get me wrong.
Hey guys, you're going to have to like pants him or something when he gets here.
Yeah.
Kevin Kafly said, what was your most frustrating part of learning?
It had to have been my reverse kiting. Whenever I first started my reverse kiting, my launches were made easy. Fletch made those easy for me. Some of my landings haven't been.
Is that what they call you, BJ?
No, they call me
scrapes in your knees.
No,
are you sure
no.
Hey guys, if it's not on the board, it better be on the board by the time I get there.
No,
good old BJ.
No, brother, no. That was because my landing gear folded.
So that's what you're saying, BJ?
No.
BJ.
All right, farewell.
My call sign is Mom.
Mom.
I'm dead serious. My call sign is Mom because I hover around like a parent, worried about all my kids. I'm not proud of it, but
yeah, I see. Yes, and I did end up with bruises. Yeah, and I ended up with bruises on both arms. This morning I flew a Spider, which is totally different than the Mojo extra large that I've been flying ever since I've been here. So flaring was a little different, and like I said, my landing gear kind of dug in.
Poor BJ.
And now I have either the name Mr. T or I have Hitman.
Yeah, those are certainly the only two options that are possible at this point.
If you guys are watching down in the classroom, do not put that on.
They are. Shout out to the February class at the Red Schoolhouse, guys. Good to see you down there. We'll be down there shortly for a call sign ceremony. Lucian Sims, who's the most beautiful New York, London Australian with an Arkansas accent. Arkansas. He says that my call sign is Mom from my jeans. I hate pants. I never like.
Yeah, right.
009 says Mom is a great call sign. There's no doubt who's in charge. I love it. I love it. All right. So Ian Cresswell says he really just wanted to see your guns.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No, the reality, like, by the way, what is the tattoo on your right bicep? I'm intrigued.
It is a pauldron.
Okay. I saw just the bottom part of that,
Uh-huh.
and I thought it was like a serpent, like a sea.
No, it's a pauldron. That's my shoulder armor.
It's not at all what I thought it was.
No.
Jim CR120 says, Bruce has been there, done that. I've even taught my wife to say that. And you say you go of your A's too early. To see that and say you let go of your A's too early. I thought this was like a wife beating joke, and I was like, that's really off color, man. Like,
Well, the one reason that they dug in so deep was we were flying one evening, and I'd got into some pretty good gusts. Well,
yeah, the wind picked up that night.
Yeah, it was getting up pretty bad, and it came in like minutes. Well, I was the last one in. Whenever I came in to land, my foot touched the ground. I'm in the brakes. The wind snatched me back, snatched just everything back. And the reason for the nickname Mr. T, my call
Gold chains,
sign.
right? It's all the gold chains.
Yeah, well, I was in the turtle position, and whenever they got to me, they're pulling my chute in, and the whole time I'm laughing because I'm having such a good time out here. I'm laughing. Everybody's like rushing, but the one good thing, nobody got a picture.
No, and this is where this first thing I asked you after I knew you were okay. I was like, did someone get a picture? He was like, no.
What didn't happen?
And I was like, no. See, that's a problem. To me, if you're safe, you're not injured, it should be commemorated. And if I had the ability right now, I would share with the entire live stream. And in fact, maybe it'll get posted. There's a beautiful picture of me in a $23,000 trike wing motor combo. It was a Nirvana Instinct 230 with the Carbon Cruise trike. I was flying, I don't remember what wing it was, and it was windy. It was real windy. And I've told you this story, but I'm going to tell it for them the same way I told you. So the thing with the Carbon Cruise, kind of like the Fly Products, what's it called? Not the Flash Cruiser, the Foxy trike, is that it sits high enough that if you plant your feet and you inflate, you can stand up, reverse, kite the wing, turn around, sit down and take off. And now I've done this a bunch of times on the Nirvana. Like I did a ton of times. The fun thing with the Nirvana was that it was a single button push on, push off. The kill switch works as an on switch also for the E-Star.
Oh, okay.
Which is dude, they had I love Pavel and Peter and all the guys in Nirvana. They've got some great ideas, and I wish that it was lighter. I wish it was less expensive, but it was a really fun experience. And so I inflate, I hit the start button, start to turn, and Simoninis have a tendency, because they hang upside down, the spark plugs at the bottom, they tend to flood. So I'm like, brr, 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 as I'm turning around to go forward, and it's windier than stinks. So I sit down, and I'm rolling backwards, and it's brr, 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 and all of a sudden it just goes, dink, and I'm on my back, and I'm still kiting the wing, right? The wing's still up, and eventually I get the wing down, and of course, the first thing that Travis does is take a picture of me.
Turtle.
I did get the motor killed in time. I didn't bring a prop. Everything was fine. But that same engine, I sold to a student, and he had a partner in it. And these guys weren't like car guys, right? These guys are they're incredible people. They're in the animal business. They love taking care of animals.
Yeah.
And they bought it so they could fly with some of their birds. And one day his partner comes out and flies out south of the field about 1.5 miles. Has an engine out. Like, oh crap. So we take off, fly down, check on him. Are you all right? You all right? Yeah, I'm good. So like Travis, I don't remember who else it was. I think it was Travis and Bastion, bushwhack it through that swamp. I mean, rattlesnakes as big around as your leg, they're bushwhacking. They're helping him bring this thing back, and it's a 100-something pound unit with a 25 or 35 pound trike. You know, it's heavy, and they got the wing, and this is a several mile adventure in and out. And it gets back to the field, and we're like, what happened? You know, clearly the engine had seized.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, what happened? And we said, you know, look at the fuel, and it's blue. What oil are you running? Oil? I don't know when it was changed last.
Oh, man.
He goes, I don't know when it was changed last. And we're like, no, it's a two-stroke. Well, what's a two-stroke? This is, mind you, this is 6 years ago. This is before... 5-6 years ago. This is before we had the class that teaches motor maintenance and all the stuff that you guys have now. It says oil 2% on the fuel caps. Like you would thought, and we mixed the fuel in front of them every day that we were teaching him for the 15 days of training he had. So it was super bizarre. Like, you don't have oil in it? He's like, I've never put oil in it. I looked down. It's got 10.6 hours. I was like, what kind of fuel you're running? Well, I'm on an avgas. We're like, well, you're not supposed to run avgas in this. The guy was running it with no oil.
And avgas.
And avgas.
Oh, this cylinder was caked.
If this was not a testimony to Simonini and the way that Nirvana like downplays their power, the guy ran it for. And mind you, his partner was flying it in between, so it wasn't all no oil hours. And some of the time there would be some oil in there, but he's probably like, if you put 10 liters of fuel in and add 2 liters that had oil, he's running like 0.001%. The daggum thing ran.
That's actually like trying to friction weld the piston into the cylinder. That's all he was doing.
Oh my gosh, it was painful. It was
insane.
truly painful. All right, thanks for being on.
All right, brother.
I probably just broke people's eardrums that have headphones in. Sorry, guys. You having fun?
Having more than fun, buddy.
Happy to have you as part of the family, my friend.
Yes,
truly.
And
it's my favorite thing is getting to meet a new class and be like, that dude and I are gonna be friends. That dude and I are gonna be friends. Oh, and that's Jim. Just kidding, Jim. I like you too. Dude, Jim was in the most impassioned speech about reusable electric cars today. I learned more in like 4 minutes of sitting in the back of the room about how different ways we can have driverless cars be safer and much more efficient. He said 7 cents a mile. Like I like Jim. Jim's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Jim and I could be the weird cousins together.
Well, he'll definitely keep you up to date on the news. Most of the time he's like, yep, news. Any break we get, he's in the news.
I've actually been trying to follow the news a little bit because we have a 12-day trip to Europe to visit our suppliers planned and in April. And I emailed all the suppliers yesterday and the day before. And then I'm like, I don't have a TV. Like, I don't watch TV. So somebody links me, and I'm like, well, coronavirus. Oh, there's 115 outbreaks in the next town over from where we're supposed to go in Italy. Oh, in Madrid, and Milan, and all these places we have to go. It's like, dude, this is not ideal.
Cerveza virus, man, is getting everyone.
Cerveza virus. So I emailed some of the suppliers today and said we may have to wait, but hopefully it's all cleared up by Coupe-Car because I got to be in France for that, baby.
Exactly.
Thank you, Charles.
All right, Eric. Be good, bud.
Hey, we're going to do some more flying together soon. It's going to happen. All right. We are 31 minutes into the actual show, I believe, because we started late because Kate wouldn't stop talking. Jeez, Kate. To all you guys down at the Red Shop, thank you for being there. For everyone who's tuned in right now, thank you all for joining us. I would love to answer any questions you might have before we bring Dave on. This is going to be a shorter show. I actually meant to introduce this show in a better way, and that was simply like, I don't know how the heck I'm supposed to follow having MLB stars on, having my wife on talking about her trauma and how challenging learning to fly was and how life-changing it was. I mean, the last few shows we've had have been incredible. I mean, we have brought in some of the most interesting personalities. And so today, I had no guests, and I was like, I should bring Dave in. And that was last night, actually. And then Dave didn't know about it until about 10 minutes before we're supposed to go live. Oops. But I'm going to bring him in. We're going to talk about weather. Bunch of questions in here I want to answer really quick. Prop balancing. It's really sad because I just had a prop manufacturer in the hangar right before I walked in here because I got my new prop. It's from Duke Propellers. I call them Duck because it's DUC. It's Duck Propellers, Duke Propellers from France. It's the new prop for the Kit Fox, and they are brilliant. And I really like their manufacturing and balancing. So I will do my best to bring him on the show soon. They just opened a new shop in Sebring, which is about an hour south of us. Anime says, will you be at Palm Beach or Palm Bay with lots of gear for us to see, feel, and lift in person? Anime, yes, I will. I don't know how much gear we'll have because we actually have 2 classes going on at the same time. I expect I'll show up with my wife's Eclipse, with my Maverick, probably 2 or 3 trikes. We're hoping to have our Eco 2 Lite in by then, which is going to be a 50 or 45 horsepower, 250-pound 2-place trike. It's ridiculous. So hoping to have that here, as well as a few other things. So it really just depends on how big of a trailer I can take with me. And I know Kate will be there as well as Allie. We're going to have a good time. So Hoysen says, when are you guys coming up north here on the East Coast? Hoysen, Charlie Walsh, guys, I would love to come to the Northeast. It's one of those things for me where it's just a question of time and utilizing it wisely. I spent the last 8 years running this business, or 7.5 years, whatever it is. Really, to be frank, I've kind of ignored my family. Not purposefully, not because I wanted to, but because if you guys watched the last show with my wife, you'll know a lot of the story where financially work was everything, and it was the most important thing we possibly could do to keep food on the table as long as we could. We sacrificed a lot, and so now that my kids are 5, 6, and 8, we're actually 6-year-olds, almost 7, another week. We're trying to put more priority toward family, or I'm trying to. So I'm trying to invest more time with them. I don't fly in the mornings anymore. I spend time with my kids, and so I'm trying to keep that focus. So as much as I'd love to come up and hang out with David Nickerson and Derek Trout and everybody else in the Northeast, it will happen soon. So, Alex Diaz, what goes on during a fly-in? Primarily drinking, bashing anyone who doesn't fly what you fly, and I mean that's not what we do, but that's primarily what goes on during a fly-in. It's actually kind of hilarious because the people who will basically call each other like POS online, talk about what terrible people they are, what terrible pilots they are on Facebook. In person, they're all nice to each other, and we all get along. You'll never see it from us, but like we see it from a lot of other people in the industry. Fly-ins are fine. I do think it's a challenge at times because you get a lot of Kodak courage. A lot of people who they go out and they are at a fly-in and they see all their friends flying, and the conditions aren't good enough for them to safely fly, but they go up and fly anyway. So it's for the Aviator folks, the Aviator family of folks who have been part of our family here. Learn to fly with us. Generally, fly-ins are us helping set up a lot of wings and hanging out and having great meals together over open fire, and it's good camaraderie. But there's a lot of good psychology that goes into it because the reality is there's always things we can learn from each other and from those around us. I have to sneeze. 1 second. One more. Sorry, it came in 3s. James Bouchard, ask Flight Products will they change harness sizes on the customers when you get over there visiting. I will, James. I am so sorry, Jim. I think it's Jim. I apologize. Spaz Attack, new Kit Fox video coming in the next week or so. I pray. We have so much great stuff going on. Brian Waller, yes, we are still looking for a video guy. Devin Albert asks if you can dynamically balance propeller with Dynavibe like an airplane. I believe you could. I have never seen anyone do it due to the cost of Dynavibe. And the issue of not having as many individual things to balance. I think it'd be amazing. I think having a Dynavibe on a paramotor would be intriguing, especially with something like the Atom, where it's so smooth. Ryan Gifford, can you take my girlfriend up for a tandem at Palm Bay? Maybe. I don't know. It really depends. I will bring tandem equipment, and I will bring tandem pilots, and if the weather is good and there aren't too many people in the sky where it feels unsafe, we would love to do tandems. Otherwise, my father offers them here through his company, Pure Flight Aviation, here in Lake Wales. So just come visit us here. Anyone know of places that do repairs and carbon fiber props that don't counter the price of just buying a new prop? I don't, JP. I don't know what the prices are on repairs anymore. My biggest encouragement on carbon fiber prop repair is to go to Amazon, buy some Q-Bond. Q-Bond is the stuff. Mr. C says, Kodak Courage, you just dated yourself. Dude, I'm 34 years old, and I was a photographer. If I can't talk about Kodak, come on now. Anyone know where to find an updated manual? Should be from Viterazzi on their website, Ryan. If they don't have it up there yet, it will be there soon. Craig Taylor, thank you for blessing me. Charlie Walsh, you as well. Derek Trout, I guess I'll thank you. Nick Griffith, you guys are amazing. This is hilarious. All right, are we hearing news about the Emotor tonight? No, we're not. You're asking about the cost for the electric paramotor from Aviator. When it releases, it will be similar in cost to replacing your Viterazzi, plus a little more. Pre-batteries, to be similar to the cost of replacing a Viterazzi. Let's put it that way. All right. Is there anything else? Devin Albrecht says, I'll try the Identifiable my Maverick when it comes in. Just ask Kate when it's going to ship. I'm pretty sure Kate's flying yours now, Devin. I saw her flying something that was not the normal one. And with that said, I'm going to bring Dave in. Sorry to make you wait, Dave. Day of the Life says, don't your balls hurt sitting with legs crossed like that? Well, the truth is, I've been married for over a decade. I'm not sure if we even have those anymore. No, I'm just kidding. Did I unplug?
No, you're good. You're just pulling on it.
Ooh, pulling on it. All right. I'm going to move this close to your face.
Yes, sir. It's good to be here, Eric.
Move in tight.
I am here.
All right. Can you hear Dave?
Test, 1, 2, 3.
Kate's on it, man. This is actually kind of cool. This is her first podcast running the whole thing.
Awesome.
She's doing great.
Yeah, she
so,
is.
Introduce yourself. Who are you? How old are you? Where are you from?
Well, I'm 59. I'm from Virginia. My name is Dave Wirt, and I've been a meteorologist geek my whole life. It was a hobby at about 5 when I started looking at clouds, became a profession, worked 36 years in the National Weather Service, finished my career last month and retired as meteorologist in charge out of the National Weather Service in Blacksburg, and this has been on my bucket list. You know, I don't know how I came across it in YouTube, and then I saw you, and I saw Tucker, and I saw Woody, and I saw all these other greats.
Who'd you see first?
I think it was Tucker, actually. Sorry.
So close.
You
said me first.
And this is really important because he talked about where he got trained. And then I said, man, that sounds so good because I've always wanted to be in the air. I had 3 things I wanted to do when I grew up. It was going to be a lumberjack, no jobs, no money. Meteorology, loved it, was my hobby. And being a pilot. 6'3", terrible eyesight. So that shot all of that. Plus, it's really expensive. You just want to be a general aviator.
It is.
So it's something I've always wanted to do. And so I started listening to him, and it's like, this is awesome. You're not having to pay $100,000 in hangar fees and everything else. And then I started, okay, how do I get trained? And, you know, there's a lot of different places out there that will train you.
And lots of personalities.
But I want, because I'm kind of timid. I heard in the beginning, first class, engineers, oh my gosh. And I wasn't quite sure, but I get it now because my whole life, it's calculus, it's calculating, it's control of models and situations.
And the difference is what we're doing is it's not science. It's
No.
art. There's science to it,
Yes.
for sure. And understanding the science helps.
Yeah.
But it also holds you back because it holds you back from emotional expression.
Yeah.
And being able to tap into the emotional expression of flight is what you're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it transitioned. I heard someone say it's amazing how quickly it goes from fear to fun. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think it was a little slower because I had to understand what I was doing. So I looked at Aviator and I said, wow, they have the whole package. They've got all of the ways to train you right. They've got a track history. They train so many people, and they do it well. And safety is everything.
It is.
Because I'm scared half to death being up there in the air dangling. And so for the first few days, I'm scared half to death. And so you hear this a white noise of emotions and tunnel vision because I can't see through the fear.
Right.
But the calming persistence of the instructors, and the really cool thing about Aviator is they match the instructor to your need to learn.
100%.
So they saw I was timid. They ratcheted it down. They encouraged me. And little baby steps. I felt like a little toddler for my first time, and there's dad or you, mom, basically saying, it's okay. If you fall, I'll make sure it's a soft crash. You'll get up, you'll learn. You don't have to run a mile in 4 minutes your first day as a toddler.
And we leave the training wheels
with
on.
Us.
We leave the training wheels on until you need them off.
So this has been awesome. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I mean that.
So you retired a month ago.
Yeah. It was like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life now? And a lot of people ask that because there's so many opportunities.
What do you
I
need?
just need to reset, basically.
The mic's about to fall.
I'm just gonna sneak in here real quick because this is like on
the
the
mic is
verge
about
of
to fall.
falling down.
Oh,
Eric pushed it. And
I well, no, it was already teetering.
Continue. I'm fine.
yeah. Hey.
All right, so as we make weird noises and the microphones go bonkers,
Sorry.
and those of you guys who are listening to the podcast, I apologize. You can give nods and I'll share because you probably can't hear. Do you know who Kyle O'Glee is?
No.
You don't know who Kyle is.
I'm a newbie in this sport.
I love
I
it.
know some of the legends like you,
Kyle's a legend.
but I don't have all those names down yet, so I don't know too much about who's done what. I've seen some catastrophic failures and bad decisions, which only kind of made me a little bit more nervous, but I knew I could get past that at
There you
least
go.
here.
Good to go.
So thank you.
Sorry.
All right, so Ian Cresswell asked a great question. We'll go back to Kyle in a minute. He said, I'm still on the fear.
Yeah.
How long until I get to the fun?
I would say it varies for everyone. For
It does.
me, honestly, it wasn't until I could successfully take off and successfully land lightly without falling on my face and skinning up my knees that I began to finally get to the confidence where things started quieting down a little bit.
When you start to find
and
that
then
inner
it was
peace.
like, I actually think maybe I could do this, because this whole process has been, what are my experience? I want to have the opportunity.
Right.
There's no guarantee I'm going to do anything with it. And then if it's, will you have enough confidence to take it to the next step? And honestly, I'm still growing in this. But for the first time in this second week, so it's been probably, I don't know how many, 8 or 9 flight days that we've had. And we've had some pretty crappy days where we've been grounded.
We have.
But
Like
at the
right
same
now.
time, yeah. And maybe the next couple of days
I
for
just-
weather reasons. But,
You guys may not know this, but I'm going to throw AJ on blast.
uh-oh.
So AJ's walking out to go fly tonight. And I
Yeah.
just one-wheeled up, and it's like, it's 15 gust 20. It's windy. You know, it's doable on a small wing with a, you know, but it was pretty gust, probably more like 15 gust 23. You know, it's, and the gust factor is pretty high. And so he walks out the door, and I looked at Chris and said, it's pretty strong. And AJ's a very talented pilot, right?
Yeah, he's awesome.
And Chris is like, yeah, it's really, really kind of nasty. It's punchy. So I opened the door, and as I opened the door, I'm like, opening the door against the wind. And I go out, and AJ's pulling the wing up. And I was like, you think that's a good idea? He's like, oh, yeah, it's all right. And I was like, I don't think it's a good idea. And then his engine wouldn't quit. So he's got the wing overhead, and he can't get his engine to quit. So I run up to him. I have bruises on my knuckles because I run up to him, and I'm hitting his primer bulb, trying to get it shut down, as we're getting drug 50 feet across asphalt. And I was like, it's not a good idea. And he's just like, yeah. I think by the time he got the wing overhead, he's like, yeah, no. But that's one of the interesting things is like a lot of pilots get in that situation where their confidence, and this is not putting you on blast, AJ, because I've been right where you were. Like I've been right there where like it feels good. Greg Anthony Harris, we're talking miles per hour. I've been there where I'm looking at the conditions and I'm like, I think it's within my wheelhouse. But you don't recognize, and AJ hadn't checked, at least I don't believe he checked the forecast, which is that it's increasing. The wind speeds are increasing throughout the night. So there's a lot of stuff that you and I could talk about with your experience, not just with learning to fly paramotors, but with your life experience of how do you learn to look at weather and see what's happening next.
Yeah.
Because like, with paramotoring, I feel pretty competent. I've done enough years of this where it's been my every morning, every evening I look outside and I know exactly what it's like, literally what it smells like. What I can walk outside, and even if my knee doesn't hurt, I can tell you, oh, the pressure shifted. There's about to be a gust front. Like you can feel that drop in barometric pressure. What are some? I mean, I'm putting you on blast right now. Do you have any practical things that can increase the amount of confidence that a pilot can have knowing what the weather's going to do next? And if it's too much to say now, please know that if you're open to it, I just filled your retirement. I think that if you have a passion for the sport, which it seems like you do,
love it. Yeah.
let's make weather videos together. Like
I'd love it. That'd be awesome.
I'm serious. Like if you can do weather watching, because I travel all over the world, I can film weather conditions, and you can track what they are based upon regional stuff. And I could have you literally make a video that says, "Hey, if you're in Toulouse, France, right now, you're looking at these clouds with this little bit of virga. Here's why it's going to be safe to fly in 30 minutes, or here's why if it's blowing 3 gust 3." you're about to die,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's blowing 3 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I would love that because
Yeah.
none of us have this much experience. And sorry for jumping back, I have to ADD this. Kyle Oakley is a pharmacist from Louisiana, paramotor pilot, great guy, has a YouTube channel. He is a weather watcher. And he's like Charles, but with a truly Louisiana accent. And he geeks out about the weather for 30 minutes at a time on vlogs, and you'll love him.
Okay.
And you'll probably be able to teach him a thing or two, and you guys will probably become best friends. And he'll be here in 2 weeks, so just stick around.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll talk to my wife about that.
All right, so talking about things that you might be able to practically do,
Yeah.
are there practical tools that any Joe paramotor could look at right now to have more confidence?
Yeah. Confidence as far as learning, just learning?
To walk
or
outside and
weather.
know more. Yeah, to walk outside and know more about the weather.
Well, first of all, high pressure systems are your friend.
Yes.
Now, not in between systems. You could have a high pressure system moving off to your east, like what's happening now. We're still on the periphery of this high. That's why it didn't rain here today. But we got a big Arctic cold front and low pressure to the west of us. So we're getting this squeeze play in the atmosphere of a pressure gradient, which is keeping the winds up. Normally, winds drop off at night. Well, they're not.
That's
tonight.
the ISO bars moving
Yes.
closer together, right?
Yes.
Right.
The closer in spacing you see those lines, those are isobars, lines of equal pressure. It's like taking your garden hose and you got a lot of water going through and just gradually squeezing it. The same amount of water is going to come through, but it's going to go through a lot faster.
Right.
So that's what's happening in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is a fluid, just like water. It's just less dense, but it acts and is a fluid.
And
It's the same thing.
I've always explained it in class the same way. It's like when I'm trying to teach rotor, I'm like, as a kid, did you ever go to a stream and drop a rock in it?
Yep.
Right? You see the small amount of turbulence ahead of it, and you see this massive amount of turbulence behind it. It's the same idea. I posted a video this past week of me flying a 10.5 meter Rapido, which is a tiny, tiny wing, and I was flying behind the burble, for instance, or mechanical turbulence of the hangar, the skydive hangar, and my wings like, you know?
Yeah.
And it's that same idea. You're flying through white water.
Yeah.
And if you start to think about air as if it's water, instead of thinking of it as aerodynamics, think of it as liquid dynamics.
Yeah.
That's how I've
That's
done it
right.
personally. So you can tell me if I'm wrong on this.
No, you're right. Matter of
Okay.
fact, and we tend to think in 2 dimensions. We're flying in 3 dimensions. So if you think of a rock there, not only are you as the stream of air or the stream of water, we see it in the creek going around and kind of swirling those rotors this way, it's also going over the rock. So
Right.
it's swirling this way. So you could have swirling motion this way and that way and get into a mess real fast.
Interesting.
So that's why we'll go back to high pressure. If you're right under the high pressure, and you can see this on a lot of weather maps, big high, good, good. And you'll usually, especially down here in Florida, what you'll see is fog in the morning. Because big high, it's clockwise rotation and it's subsidence, it's descending air. So that's what produces the higher pressure. It's air coming down. And what that does is just allows it's clear, the ground cools, it condenses in the form of usually fog, and very light winds or no winds whatsoever. Now, obviously, you're going to have to stay clear of cloud in G, so you can't fly through it until it burns off. But usually, that's a beautiful morning and maybe a beautiful evening as well for maybe a couple of days when you have a big high. But when that high moves away and you start to see those gradients before the next low, that's when you probably don't want to fly. So that's just an easy. High pressure is your friend, and if you watch for that, you'll be good.
Is that why we have temperature gradients or temperature inversions where in the
Very good. Yeah,
so the
exactly.
inversion is coming from the moisture in the air, or is the inversion coming from a density difference?
An inversion is the way that the temperatures change with respect to height. An inversion in the atmosphere, normally, if you go up, as you go up, it gets colder and colder. But in inversion, it actually gets warmer.
Well,
so that's what
it's very
happens
common
here.
Yeah,
Yes,
very common.
it could be 50 degrees on the ground, but at 1,500 feet, it's 60 degrees. So you actually are increasing your temperature before it starts to get above that inversion layer, and then it starts decreasing the way it normally would. So in that state, I'll call it a stable layer. An inversion is usually very stable. beautiful,
it's
light,
placid, yeah.
smooth, buttery winds. But be careful, because right on the top of that inversion, you can have very strong winds. And if you go up into that layer, then you can get really bad wind shear, and you'll get partial wind collapses and things like that. So this is what we had the past couple of mornings. There was inversion to about 150 feet. And as soon as you got above that, you actually felt it a little warmer, but that's when it started to do the dishwasher stuff.
Right. Starts to get pretty
And it's
trashy.
very unnerving for a newbie pilot. But, we have these big boats, these mojos.
wings, yeah.
You can't kill those things. And so if you trust your equipment, you trust your instructors, and you know that they know the weather, and everyone's talking about it, you're safe.
So Ian Cresswell says he's from the UK. What's a high pressure system?
High pressure in UK is still the same as here.
He's messing around.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I've had all types of questions like this my whole career, and you just don't know.
So my experience with guys in your office has been air show weather briefings, both with National Weather Service and with NOAA. And my experience, it's always been so intriguing, because you go into an air show briefing. Let's say next month we're at Sun and Fun, and so NOAA will do the weather briefings for all the air show performers, and they'll give us all the weather up to 35,000 feet, because I think the Thunderbirds are flying this year, and they go real high. And then after the presentation is done and they ask for any questions, I will generally be like, I'm not going to ask any questions now, and I'll walk up afterwards and say, can I please have a weather briefing up to 1,200 feet at this specific time, from surface to 1,200, and they can give me as much detail in 30-foot increments.
Yep.
And it's so intriguing to me, because I feel like as a fixed-wing GA pilot, I have shortcutted myself to the point where, like, when I want to plan a trip, January 1st, I was supposed to fly to Nashville, and brother, I'm the king of Google, and I'm the king of asking my other pilot buddies for advice. So I'm like, okay, so I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that, and I planned it, charted it, plotted it. I should have flown up. I ended up flying commercial. Ended up having to stay an extra day. Ended up having all these extra things that have to happen. And if I'd flown up, I would have arrived in half the time it took to fly commercial, 4 hours of flight time. Actually, 3 hours and 25 minutes, because I had tailwind both ways. And then it would have had terrible snowy weather for the 3 days I was there, and then perfect weather on the way home. And I didn't trust myself, so I flew commercial. It was a $40 Spirit flight, but it would have ended up being cheaper than the extra hotel room, to fly myself. And so, as a GA pilot, there's so much I don't know. As a paramotor pilot, I feel like the entire community has so much to learn. So, are there any weather apps or resources for education that you'd recommend for paramotor pilots watching this, with full knowledge that if you're open to it, I'm going to use and abuse you, and we're going to make videos, because, dude, you have so much knowledge.
We're a family.
Heck yeah.
And I look, not just Aviator, paramotors.
Yes.
I was up in the air when I got hit by a gust front. I've forecasted for 767, 777 pilots, container ships on the oceans, the general public, TV weather. I have never been at the mercy of the weather and how important accurate weather information is in time and space than when I was in that turbulence.
All of a sudden, you're at a gust front, you're going,
and
I didn't see it coming.
It gave me such a respect for valuable information. So we're in this together as a community. We're all brothers and sisters, and we're here to keep each other accountable and keep each other safe. So the degree that I can help that, I will be glad to, because it'd be an honor just to contribute in that way. So yes. Now, as far as apps, actually through our training, Aviator has done awesome as far as identifying a lot of weather apps.
Now, how to use them?
Well, and that's a whole nother level. But actually, all the apps that you recommend are really, really good.
What's your favorites?
Windy, I really like, because not only can you see the forecasted winds, very high resolution, digital based, and those digital grids come actually from the National Weather Service, but then it's packaged up in a way in an app that is really intuitive. It's not the scientific gobbledygook that most people go, what the heck are you talking about?
I find it so interesting, because I use all the FAA's weather tracking tools and forecasting, which all comes from NWS as well. And when I'm trying to plan a trip, let's say it's 5 days in advance or 3 days in advance, there's nothing of value. It's so, it's like this government safety bubble of
Conspiracy.
spread.
Yeah.
Like it's like, well,
Yeah.
it could be 7 degrees, it could be 57
Yeah.
degrees. We're not quite sure
Yeah.
which, so we don't want to agree. Wendy's like, it's going to be 17
Yeah.
degrees. It's going to be this and this altitude. The winds are going to be this
Yeah.
and that altitude. And it's so much more accurate.
But it's a deterministic forecast.
Right.
And so people are, well, what's the difference between deterministic and probabilistic? Deterministic is the best, most likely outcome. Does that guarantee that's going to be outcome? Absolutely not.
No.
If you think of the bell curve of all the possibilities, that would be like the most likely, but there's a whole spectrum of other possibilities. And as a paramotor, you're susceptible to even a 2 mile an hour difference. So if I told you, hey, Eric, you're flying tomorrow at 7 a.m., and you would prefer not to be flying in anything more than 12 miles an hour, I can give you a 80% chance that it won't be above 12 miles an hour. But there's a 15% chance that it'll be above it, and there may be a 15% chance it'll actually be less than 5. Then if you have all that data, you can make the decision where your safe your points
Right.
are. Like for me, if it's more than 7, forget it. I'm not flying until I get a little bit more experience.
Right.
For you, your comfort margin may be 12 or 13 or 14, even at that 15%, but I won't risk that. So I give it all to you, and as long as you can interpret that well, you'll do what you want, but your decision will be different than my decision. But that data's all out there. We get now down to, this is the resolution, not only the models, but the gridded data that we produce, and then it's ported out through all these different apps, down to 2.5 to 2.5 kilometer bins, which is about 1.25 mile, 1.5 miles by 1.5 miles, every single hour across the entire United States, Puerto Rico, Alaska, out in the Pacific Rim as well. Every hour for wind direction, wind speed, temperature, wind shear, wind chill, chance of precipitation, amount of clouds, height of clouds, type of precipitation. It just goes on and on and on. And you can get all that. So what I can do, and I don't know if you can do this maybe once we get a chance to collaborate a little bit, is maybe I can develop a huge list of everything that people could want. And then they can kind of do their window shopping and see what they want. And maybe we can attach it to the end of this thing and see this. I don't know how that works.
I
But
love it. I love
yeah,
it.
We'll be
So
glad
we
to
have
do
an
it.
app coming out that we're working on right now. Having a weather forecasting system within the app. First up, app developing is very expensive, but whatever we can open source and integrate would be really interesting. What's your favorite modeling system? What do you think is the most consistent in your personal opinion, not NWS, your personal opinion?
Depends on what time and space you're looking at. If you're looking at
Sunrise and sunset in Lake Wales, Florida.
Okay, so you're not going to, a lot of people say European, and honestly, the Europeans are killing many of the American models. But these are the bigger global and regional models that go out to 10 days. They're not going to get down to the nearest 1.5 miles.
Right.
That's where you go to these really short-term models, like the Nest. I'm going to start talking geek, and it's all acronyms, but it's SREF and the nested NAM and the SREF. I mean, there's so
Which
many.
one should we look at for tomorrow morning?
What I normally do is I look at them all, and I take a look
for those of us who are ADD like me who won't remember them all. Which one?
I would probably do the SREF.
The SREF. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it.
And actually, there's a site I can take you to. It's actually a National Weather Service site. It's the National Center for Environmental Prediction, NCEP, and they have all the models and models within models.
Right.
And you can click and choose whatever you want. But those
That's
are the
so
high
cool.
resolution models that are awesome.
Apparently, my mic is lower than David's. Boom, saved.
Yeah. Matter of fact, just case in point, we'll see how it verifies. I was looking at some of the high resolution models just before we came on tonight. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have a little bit of a low in the wind. If they're right, this is how resolved this is. There will be precipitation to the northwest of us and precipitation to the southeast of us, and there'll be about a 50-mile area where it'll be cloudy but no rain for about 2 hours, right around sunrise. And then at about 9 o'clock, the atmosphere starts bubbling and everything fills in as we get this cold front starting to approach us. So we'll see if that works or not. All
So
bets are off.
I'm gonna throw something at you this is my belief, not a weather expert. Having lived here, I traveled from the age of 3 to 18, 6 months a year. I traveled around the country. Then I moved away when I was 18, came back when I was 23. Excuse me. I've been at this airport since I was 14 years old. 13 or 14. I've watched as thunderstorms break around us frequently. Now we're at a point of the ridge. So the Florida Ridge runs through about 2/3 of the state. And we're at a point in it where it increases in height. That's why Bach Tower's Iron Mountain, all that stuff. So the most violent storm I've seen, and people like stories, I'm going to tell a story. I was tasked, we were flying out of the chalet at the time, skydiving. And I was tasked with go up and check and see what the weather is aloft. Because the same drop zone that's operating here now, but back then they had a Cessna 182. It was like, this is a tiny, tiny little drop zone flying out of my family's runway. And so I take off in a 1947 Cessna 140 or 48 and climb up. And two thunderstorms came at the north point of this ridge. And they combined, and a gust front came out. So I'm flying full deflection of the ailerons, trying to land, can't land. It's brutal. Turn around, hightail it, get back to Lake Wales Airport, land here. I landed, taxied up to the ramp, got the tail tied down and one wing tied down, and the gust front hit. It's blowing 70 to 90 miles an hour. Like, this is like, that's the wind speed according to the airspeed indicator in the airplane. It could be way different, but that's the airspeed. So I'm literally on the ground, and I'm just flying. I'm tied down halfway. I just flew it for 30 minutes till the gust front went by, and it was fine. I took back off and flew home. But what was really interesting to me is are there topographical things? Because people ask us this all the time about, like, I'm going to go home and fly in the mountains.
Absolutely.
What are some of the topographical? I mean, I know I'm always looking for Venturis, right? If I'm flying in the mountains, I'm looking for Venturis. But are there any other topographical things you might look at, even in spite of a forecast?
Yeah. The atmosphere is like a bubble. It's always like a bubble. Think of a pin near a bubble. That I'll say a fully inflated balloon. All this energy. You blew this big balloon up. A lot of energy there. Is it ever going to be released? You don't know if that pin is way far away. But there are days where that pin is very close. And all you need is a little nudge and bang, the whole atmosphere goes off. So you may have, like over the mountains, very frequently, we call it differential heating. Let's just not say we're bringing in a cold front or a warm front or any massive area of precipitation. As the sun hits in the morning, the eastern edges of the ridges, that will heat up first. So now you've got upward vertical motion here. The western part of the ridges are not getting much sun. So it actually starts a thermal here. And so now you're going to begin
like a mountain wave
to go,
almost.
Exactly. But so with this going up, if there's enough moisture in the atmosphere, then you'll start to see the cumulus form. And then eventually, if the air is unstable, like this big balloon, and you're now taking the pin and popping it, it'll go vertical, and all of a sudden it becomes self-sustaining, and it becomes a thunderstorm. So usually right along toward the ridge line and just to the east of the ridge where the wind will be coming from. If it's from the east, it's going to be east of the ridge. If it's from the west, it's going to be just to the west of the ridge. Just due to the normal solar difference of angles of attack of that sun will produce these thermals. So that's why, one, you don't want to be flying in the mountains during the peak heating of the day, because you're going to get even worse thermals than you would on the flatlands here in Florida. But you'll also get potentially much, much more volatile weather much, much more quickly. Here, a lot of times what will happen is the heating of the day, and they'll just be like popcorn thunderstorms, because there's nothing necessarily focusing it like a ridge where it would tend to lock on that ridge, or the sea breeze, where especially if it's a light gradient, you'll get the sea breeze on the east coast coming inland, sea breeze on the west coast going inland, and you'll see the whole outline of Florida getting wrung with the sea breeze encroaching toward the middle. But by the time it finally gets to the middle, it's at the end of the day, it slows down, collapses, and here we are, you get some cirrus, but you never got the rain.
Can I give you a fun story?
Yeah.
All right, because I know you love weather. So
I do.
One day, Travis and I are sitting here looking, and we're looking at windy, and we're watching the predictions. And the predictions are like 11 miles an hour, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. At sunset, we're going to have 2 miles an hour of breeze from east and west.
Go figure. How does that happen?
So Travis ends up at 1,000 feet or so on a free ride 15.
Wow.
going up at probably 500 feet per minute with the engine off. This perfect effect where the wind from both coasts, that convergence came in. And I've seen it happen a few times since then, but that was probably the most perfect one where he's doing wingovers and spirals, and he can't come down. He's just going up, you know, and we predicted it. We saw it coming, and I know it's available. Do you know the term glass off in the mountains?
No.
So it's the same idea, and I don't know. It's not a convergence per se. It's when the temperature. I'm going to butcher this for the free flight pilots who are watching. Please help me. It's the idea of being in a valley where the temperature has heated to a certain point that when the evening comes and the cold air hits, all that warm air pops out like a bubble. So if you have a valley of warm air and then the cold air pressurizes down on it, as it sinks, all that hot air is forced out, and you have what they call a glass off. So that everywhere you go is lift. Everywhere you go is beautiful, perfect, flyable lift. And I've experienced it one time in Kelowna, or in just north of Kelowna, British Columbia. It was like,
wow,
just going
nice.
up. It was just like the coolest thing ever.
Weather is awesome, and for a
and
pilot
terrifying.
to experience, as long as you're on the good side of the weather and the bad, not the bad side. So, I saw one of the questions before. What would you be looking for? My first thing is don't be looking for anything. Be aware of the potential even before you go outside.
I like that,
because then you know what to look for. If you don't, then you're going to be at the mercy, and maybe it's too late to get down and be safe. But if you see, one of the questions, if you see a big flat cloud base that's dark, usually what that means is a lot of upward vertical motion coming up, and it's condensing at the same level. But if it's dark, it's usually pretty thick. You may not be far enough away to see this big giant castle going up above that. When you see that, what it means is if all this moisture is coming up, it's going to come down eventually. You've got billions of pounds of water and rain and maybe hail suspended by an updraft, and eventually it's going to collapse.
Okay, you just made me ask a very interesting question.
Yeah, so if you see a black, get away, get down, because if it collapses and you're still flying around because you don't see any rain and you're not seeing any verga yet, it's too late. You're going to get into a downburst, and that'll bring down even 767s.
Okay, so I have to ask this. I first off completely agree. I've seen it happen. Not the 767s particularly, but things like that. I've never thought. Now, every time I take a passenger flying with me, and we have to go through, VFR conditions through clouds, around clouds, and we hit a bump next to a cloud, or a cloud is sucking us up. I'm like, I try to explain like the mass that a cloud has. Like every cloud has its own mass. It has its own form, and every cloud has its own energy, like everything in life does. And I try to express, and actually Kate and I were just flying the other day together, and it was real rowdy, and we ended up climbing up like 7,500 feet, 8,500 feet, and we're going between cumulus clouds. And it was gorgeous. It was really a beautiful flight, but every time I get close to a cloud, and you just gave a number that I've never heard before. You say a cloud, billions of pounds.
Think of when it rains. How much, a gallon of water weighs what?
6 pounds.
6 pounds. So how many gallons of water just in your neighborhood falls in a torrential downpour?
Holy crap.
Now multiply that by tens or hundreds of miles.
I've never, ever considered how much a cloud would weigh.
And think of something like a hurricane. Now, obviously, a thunderstorm isn't... A hurricane is many thunderstorms.
It's trillions.
It is a nuclear bomb going off every 10 seconds. Literally.
Holy crap.
That's the amount of energy that is being produced by the release of latent heat and all of the dynamics, rain, the weight loading that's going on. This is nothing to play around with.
I mean, if we look at every action having an equal and opposite reaction, if you look at just the sheer volume of weight displacement and the amount of air that is moved by the water that's moving through it, no wonder we have... Dude, you just blew my mind.
Yeah.
If you drop billions of pounds of weight from the sky, let's put it in one anvil that's 60 feet by 60 feet.
Right.
The amount of displacement.
Right.
Alone, just displacement. I never considered it being that vast.
And if it all falls down through that air, where's that air going?
Right,
it's
it all
going
gets pushed.
Down too. And then you're going to have this big blast of air as it hits the ground, because it's not going to keep going down in the ground. It's going to come out like a rain.
Permeates out, yeah.
Exactly, and those are your gust fronts.
Dude, this is so cool. This is so much.
You're becoming a real weather geek, you know that.
No, I love weather, and I kind of
pilot,
hate weather.
sure.
I'm terrified of weather
Yeah.
as a pilot, particularly as a VFR pilot. I don't have my instrument rating, So that's this year's goal. I have to get my instrument rating before the end of the year, or I will probably have to shave my head. So which is going to inevitable anyway. So, but I have to do it. But I'm very cautious with the weather. Like I am super cautious, especially using my airplane as a commuter. Like I flew up to Denellen a few weeks ago to deliver some parts last minute right at sunset. And I got up there and it was rain in between here and there, and I'm at 2,500 feet across a swamp, and I was like, I'm sleeping on an air mattress tonight. Like I was a delivery man, brought it here. I'm sleeping on an air mattress, and that's my reality as a pilot to stay safe for my family and for myself. But this stuff is so interesting.
One, it's not just weather is scary because it isn't what you see necessarily. Right. It's what you can't see that will be seen soon.
Right.
In other words, that cumulus cloud that you saw. That all that was an updraft that started tens of minutes ago, that finally all that moisture got to the point where it cooled and condensed, and now you can see it. It was there all along. You just never saw it. So understanding the causes of weather in addition to the visual clues puts the whole package together. If you just wait for the visual clue, you missed it already and you got darn lucky. And if you just chase fear because everything is going to kill me, the sky is falling, you'll never get off the ground.
Yeah, you have
so
to have a balance.
Education and kind of gradually moving up through that is the best place to be.
All right, so imagine my friend Derek Trout. I don't know if you have watched Tucker's videos of the giveaway guy that he gave the class to, Derek, but Derek is about this far from eating crayons. All right, I love you, Derek. You just happen to be in the chat, so I'm using and abusing you once again. What books or YouTube channels or series would you recommend to start? Like, you've opened my eyes. The billion pounds thing, literally, like, I never considered the actual constructual weight of what a cloud is. What are some things that people can do to start looking at weather in a different way that they can start to have more ownership of it?
Well, I mean, any weather book, Introduction to Meteorology, Weather Basics. Is that the PPG Bible from Jeff Goen?
Yeah. Have you read Understanding the Skies?
No.
I have a copy
read
right
the
there.
Bible.
The PPG Understanding the Skies is incredible. I think I paid $120 for it on eBay when I bought it because it was out of print. Kate, would you make sure we give him a copy? It should be right outside that door. It's can't remember the author. I'm just wondering if there's anything else like that.
There's tons of stuff out there.
Okay.
You don't have to saturate your brain with stuff that is meteorology 401 level.
Right. And that's the challenge.
Start with the basics.
But most smart weather people like to share the 401. We need the 0.01.
Yeah. Well, that's me learning how to paramotor. I'm taking baby steps, and as long as one of the students, or maybe it was one of the instructors, said, if I can just learn 1% a day, that will be good.
That's pretty solid.
I just don't want to stop learning, because then it's a perishable skill. You're going to lose it.
That was the conversation I actually had with my wife this morning, and it wasn't about paramotoring. It was about personal development. It's about this idea that she and I have made a commitment to continue to grow beyond her trauma, to continue to grow beyond the challenges we've had in our life, and we can't ever deviate from forward movement. Yeah. The moment we deviate from forward movement and we take a step back, the moment that we believe that we have to take a step back, is the moment we become the victim. And so even if it's not a personal thing, it's a professional thing, anything else, you must force yourself forward despite the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the only way you can help other people.
It's terrifying.
Dennis Pagan is the author. That's right. So AJ says the entire class has been awesome listening to Dave. Dude, Dave's amazing. All right?
Well, I want to say our class is amazing. I love these guys. I do. And we were talking about, Charles was talking about a little earlier, the synergy of learning in a classroom environment with different instructors, different skills, different ways to relate to the students, and learning from the students' mistakes and being okay with that. Because, hey, we all have our skins on our knees ripped off at this point, not to mention
bruises.
These bruises that are finally going away. We've all done it. So there's nothing like it. It's exhilarating. It's an epiphany. And for anyone that's got the fear, I've been there. And some may not get through. But honestly, I'm really timid. I like my feet on the ground, but I've always wanted to be a pilot. And the way it's done here is done right. So my hat's off to you guys.
Thank
team, you made it. You've helped me get past my fears. So thank you.
It's such an honor to hear it. I mean, we were talking earlier about having different instructors, how important it is. The other side of that is the fact that if you don't have fellow students,
Yeah.
you learn so much slower. When I used to teach people one-off, it was painful because they don't have perspective.
Mm-hmm.
They're only watching themselves. They can't have the perspective of learning from a wingman.
Yeah.
So, all right. Excuse me, guys. My throat is all messed up tonight. We have a whole bunch of wonderful people in the chat. Thank you all for watching. I have a feeling Dave and I are going to have to film a whole lot the next few
Awesome.
days.
It'd be an honor.
Where do you live?
Virginia.
Virginia. So when are you moving to Florida?
Actually, we're at an Airbnb in one of these retirement communities. It's like, honey, we can move down here. So she's like, I don't know. So we're starting to do some window shopping, but I don't know. All I know is that I definitely want to come down here as often as I can. I'm retired. I've got a lot more freedom than I used to.
I think you have a lot of opportunity to give back to the community. Our fifth rule is giving back, and you,
absolutely.
of all people, have an opportunity to help inspire people to have confidence, to be more safe, and just to have more knowledge. Like for me personally, I need more knowledge, and I recognize the areas where I have holes in my life where I'm failing. Like I don't have my instrument rating. That's a failure to me. Like I could be safer for my family if I had my instrument rating. I could have so much more safety for my family if I knew everything that's in your head, or at least like 5% of it. That'd be fine.
Too much is not always a good thing.
All right, guys. Any last minute questions? I don't want to make everyone stay super late like we have the last couple of weeks. But Dave, thank you for being on.
It's an honor.
Dude, with 20 minutes notice.
Thanks.
You're the man. Thank you, my
too.
friend.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate it. Guys, that has been episode number 38 of the Ask Aviator podcast. Dave's been amazing. If you guys enjoyed Dave and Charles, I really loved having them here with us, and we would love to share more with you soon. Next week, another episode, most likely on Tuesday, although I can't guarantee it. I'm going to go down and help award a few of these call signs because this is some seriously important stuff. And if you aren't a part of the Aviator family yet, we'd love to have you join us. We have 2 slots available in March the 14th here in Lake Wales. And we have some slots available in April as well. This is the first time we've had slots available with less than a 5 or 6 month call out in years. So if you want to join us, let us know. Huge shout out to Bob Garber, Charlie Walsh, Jeff Stang, Craig Taylor, Torque Doff, Brian Waller, and Derek Trout, who is currently eating crayons. Have a great night. We'll see you soon. So long.